Welcome to the Girl Dad Show.
Welcome to the Girl Dad Show, a professional parenting podcast. Each month, I interview entrepreneurs, leaders, and professionals who are balancing parenthood, life, and profession in the hopes to learn what it takes to be an amazing professional parent. Hey, thank you so much for joining another episode of the Girl Dad Talk. This is part of Season 2's efforts to share with you a little bit about my professional parenting journey in between the regularly scheduled interviews. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about stuff that's going on in my mind right now. And really talk to you a little bit about the strange place that I am in professionally. I think I mirror a lot of the tech force and the tech world that is in kind of a crunch with the recession. Over the last few months, I've participated in a bunch of layoffs with startups that were my clients. And through that process, have been looking for new clients in the startup space. And it's been very, very hard to find new clients. And so this has been going on for a little over a month now. And it's been really, really interesting to say the least. Because on one end, there is a hardship in getting this business back up and running, which is the main way that my family and I generate income. And then on the other end is that over the last year and a half, we've been generating so many different assets that those assets are actually showing return on investment, not at the level that we can make to compensate for the loss, but definitely growing. And then one in particular is growing very, very rapidly. And I talked about this the other week, and I'd love to continue on that conversation. But it's been really, really interesting to go into this mode where I have to figure out how I want to make money and how I want to adapt to the sudden abruptness of income loss. It's almost the equivalent of me being laid off and then not being able to replace that income. And so I have been spending the last 5 weeks really trying to figure out, how to spend my time and divide it up between doing business development that's turning out to be 4 or 5 times harder to close a client than it used to be. And also trying to figure out if I want to engage in some of these other businesses that I've been building and, really double down on those to see if I can generate income from that. And long story short, on a professional level, I'm still trying to figure it out. And I'm kind of just working a ton and spending a ton of hours doing both. And obviously servicing the clients that I have and working with them, trying to find new clients, and also simultaneously exploring this concept of building on the businesses that are doing really well. One in particular is my pool service business, and it's very, very exciting. Blue Ocean Pool Service is a saving grace in a certain sense because it gives me the opportunity to really have something to build while I'm trying to figure out where the money's going to come from. Not that it generates income for me yet, but it has the potential to. And it's been really forcing me to really think about my life and what I want and why I'm doing it. And the urgency of making money quickly has also expedited that thinking process and kind of making me do that self-exploration. And I'm getting much more closer every week to what I want to do. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So one of the big things that is really pushing me towards this decision and goal is happiness, and really my happiness and satisfaction. It's really trying to figure out what I want to do and how I want to spend my time. And going back to the original goal, a year and a half ago, or was it 2 years ago? Oh wow, I've been consulting for a long time now. 2 years ago, when I started this consulting business, how I can basically incorporate, a better lifestyle mix of time, energy, who, when, where I work with, but also the time I spend with my kids and when I spend it with them. And it's like it's been a little bit wonky. It's been a very wonky trying to build up a large amount of cash so that I can deploy it into assets. And doing this podcast has really helped me articulate this out loud. And doing these Girl Dad Talks has been unbelievable for me. Just being able to talk out loud and really articulate, the transitions that I've made and why I've made it. And so I'm super grateful for you listening in and letting me talk to you if you're listening. And And if you are struggling with kind of decision making and where you're headed, I would highly recommend you just record yourself or just talk it out loud, or give me a call and you can talk it out loud to me, and we could whiteboard it together. But I am finding it very, very timely to use this time, this break in this recession, to possibly reset, how I spend my time again and kind of get back to normal. I feel like the original goal of just making as much money as I can to build and buy assets has proven really good and beneficial. But I also think that there is a extremeness to how I've approached it. And I think I'm coming to the conclusion that I want to taper that down and still go down the same path of, getting a lot of cash, as much as like optimizing for cash, but maybe lesser levels. So that way I can also include more time with my kids, my health, my family, and all the other personal aspects of my life. And I think it's more about like, going from one pendulum to the other and then kind of swinging a little bit back more to the middle, and maybe not the middle, maybe like more closer to here, because I do want to do this quickly, right? I don't want to wait too much, especially right now, because there's so much opportunity during the recession to buy assets and generate a lot of growth, in my opinion. And I think that that's a great opportunity to start building and growing things. And the pool service one is a great example of it. And so over the last couple of weeks, I have started to socialize the idea of raising capital for it, to help spur the growth faster, so that I can actually generate income from it that is replaceable of my other income. Because right now we can make it profitable. I guess I could break down some of the unit economics here, but in 6 months we've grown this business tremendously. It has been unbelievably high demand service. And I think that it's not necessarily just like the fact that we, use, software to optimize the service, or that, we hire a diverse set of employees, or we, do things a little bit differently. We collect data and we optimize for data and efficiency. There's a lot of things that we do uniquely, for sure. And we're definitely building this company more like a tech startup or a growth startup. But I will say it has a lot more to do with just the economy and the geo. I think Austin, Texas is like the perfect storm of people moving here from the coastal regions with higher salaries, coming in, buying a house, building pools, and then wanting a certain layer of service that they're not used to having, or the locale is not used to servicing. And so the timing is just really, really perfect. So there's a huge tailwind here, and it's impossible to keep up with demand. And so we have been investing our personal money since January into this business, and something in the ballpark of $20,000 or $25,000 a month we've been putting into this business to buy a truck and to hire a new employee and build this out. And every month we've been doing this, and my GM has been, hey, so should we slow this down or do this, and we can be profitable? And I'm like, no, if I don't want to turn any customers down, right? I want to try to grab as much market share as possible. In typical growth mindset, I'm like, let's keep growing. And so, unfortunately, with the recession happening and then losing some, consulting clients, I had to slow it down. I couldn't invest, the money, the capital to buy another truck. And so this is the first month that the business will be turning a profit, and then it'll be small, and then next month it'll be a lot bigger. And then we'll be able to use about a month and a half to 2 months worth of profit to buy another truck. So it's significant amount of profit, but um, it's not fast enough, right? Because we're literally turning down. I think I'm calculating it right now as we speak, but it's in the ballpark of like $8,000 or $10,000 a month that we're turning down in revenue, based on the limited amount of marketing and outbound work that we're doing. Like we're doing very little, and we're getting a lot of inbound requests for service, and just based on that, we're already losing so much revenue. So imagine if we actually had capital to, one, buy the trucks, buy the equipment, hire the staff, and do some decent marketing. Like the potential is unbelievable. And so I made the decision to start fundraising and see if I can keep growing this, because it just hurt my stomach a lot to turn down this money and this demand that was so easily obtainable right now in the market, and the timing and everything, right? And so it's been really, really crazy, because the last 2 weeks I've just spent building out this deck, socializing the idea with some friends, and already getting a ton of traction, already getting a lot of like good feedbacks. I mean, for the most part, I think a lot of people are having a hard time putting their money anywhere. So you have it in the stock market. I mean, the stock market's dropping what, 15 to 20% month over month since I guess it's only been 2.5 months, but you know what I'm saying? It's been dropping really drastically, and they're expecting it to drop even further the rest of the year. So you're losing, double digits plus, in the stock market. And then inflation rates are, hitting double digits now. So if you hold it in cash, you're losing money, just from inflation, just from holding it. And then, crypto is just tanked completely. And so unless you're going to go into venture, which is also being pulled back drastically, and all the big, VC firms are holding back and pulling back as well, there's really nowhere to put your money, that's going to gain you interest right now. And so this whole concept of like building a service business during the recession, I've read about this and I've heard about this. And I don't know. It's never been something that I was like, like, oh, that's what I got to do, or that's the tactic. But I will tell you guys, it is absolutely true. Like service businesses are the way to go during the recession, because I feel like there are certain things that, just from like thinking about it logically, but being in it and experiencing it live, it's really fascinating to watch how certain things people save money on and certain things people won't. Right. Like, taking care of their pool or getting their gardens taken care of. Like, I think some people will start cutting back on that, but there's not enough of those people doing that to dissipate the demand. And especially here in Austin, I think more so in Austin, because so many new pools are going in. There's so many new people moving here building pools. And so there's just a higher number of people that want a service and don't know how to manage it or maintain it or don't want to learn it. And then there's enough people that have income and secure jobs that they're not really concerned about it, the time spent paying someone else to do it versus the time that they could, make revenue or money. And the demand is really high. And so um, that has led me to fundraising. And so I'm in the process of raising money to grow this further and break down the unit economics. And I'm thinking that's going to go well. And then over the last week and a half, I've had some really interesting conversations with some people about why I don't just go into this more full time. And, it's been a really interesting thing to think about, because for me, I've always thought of myself as a tech guy or like a startup guy or a venture back guy. And although I've done service, and I've built restaurants and I've been in the retail space, but it's always been, pretty much at scale, right? And doing things at larger scales or bigger corporations and organizations, like, and I don't know, I just never like really thought about going back towards service. And the more I thought about it, one of the biggest arguments that kept coming up was, you're going to like spend, 20, 30 hours a week, doing, sales motions and marketing motions to close a consulting client, at a tech company over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And then you're going to spend your time doing that so that you can keep investing in the service business, or you could just do the service business and get it to a place where you can actually make your income from it. And it's a really good question. It's a really good question. And it's been gnarly. It's just been really hard for me to like figure out what I want to do. And I'm like I pretty much made up my mind that I'm going to go down this road of like trying to build this out and slow down my efforts on finding a new client. Obviously, I'm going to keep going on all cylinders until something closes and something happens, just because I still need to feed my family and make sure that I have revenue coming in and there's money coming in. But I definitely have made the decision to lower my effort on finding a new client, and then really starting to expedite my effort into building up this business, because I feel like this business is really fun, and it's doing really well. It's very lucrative. We're generating. I mean, in 6 months, we're like like a little over $60,000 in MRR. And I'm happy to share these numbers with you guys. I think it's really important to talk about these unit economics, because if you are interested in building service businesses, or you're interested in getting involved in Blue Ocean, you're going to find out anyways. And you should know that there's a lot of demand for this, and it's very, very exciting business to be in. But um, I expect us to get to $100,000 MRR by the end of December, with the limited, just me self-funding it. And so it's kind of exciting to think about the potential of this service business, just cleaning pools, you know, being $1 million business in 1 year. I mean, that's pretty exciting. I mean, it's phenomenal to think about. And then if we got some funding, we would be able to generate this into a 2.5 to $3 million business. Not even the full year, like probably like by Q3 of next year. And it's just a fascinating concept to think about. But that being said, it really goes back to the idea of like what my friend said. You're either going to spend your time selling this tech client, and then you're going to use your time to service these tech clients to fund this, or you could figure out a way to raise capital or optimize this or whatever that may be to basically work on this and then make this work so that it can pay you to work on it more. And I think the part that really helped me make this decision is that I don't. Most people don't know this, but I'm not an active member of Blue Ocean. I mean, I share it on my social media and I talk about it all the time because it's really exciting and it's really fun. But I spend probably 2, maybe 4 hours a week on this business, and it's really done through my amazing GM. My GM is incredible. He's super super smart. He's from the space. He's a pool builder. He's the guy who built my pool. He's just a phenomenal guy, and he has not only the ability to understand the inner workings of all this stuff. He knows how to talk to people. He knows how to bottleneck problems, and he's just great. Like he's a fantastic operator and an amazing leader. I mean, people love him, right? Like the staff loves him and customers love him. So I think that that's also a really good combination that's allowed me to do this pretty minimally. And so I spend most of my time, running the business through my framework that I've developed that I use for my clients, right? So over the last 2.5 years, I've built out a framework that I use to help startups scale. And I'm basically applying the framework to the Blue Ocean. And I'm treating Chris like my GM like my client. And so I basically run them through the program. And, the program is usually, an hour and a half to 2 hours a week. And if you want to go faster, it goes to 3 to 5 hours a week. But essentially, I run you through my framework. I have like a step-by-step process that I run businesses through to get them to go fast. And that's what I've been doing on them. And it's really insane because it's going faster than a tech company because I think the problems are more straightforward. The problems are more direct, and the arbitrage of value is not so theoretical. The arbitrage of value is very instantaneous. Like, I'll clean your pool, you give me money, and that's the exchange of value, right? There's no like, oh, we're gonna change the way the world like thinks about batteries, or we're gonna like disrupt how the air is like circulated through the. There's no theoretical disruption or arbitrage of value that has to happen over some amount of time or complexity. It's a very direct exchange of value, and there's something very, very beautiful about that, and honest and simple and straightforward. And so, I think the framework that I use for these tech startups works even faster on service businesses because it's a lot of the stuff that makes it more complicated is non-existent here. And it really comes down to like customer service, quality of work, people, equipment, EBITDA, a lot of financial modeling, and unit economics. And it's pretty damn straightforward, and makes it really fun. But the question that I keep coming back to, and the thing that a lot of my mentors and friendlies and friends have been talking to me about is, if you can build $1 million business in 3 to 4 hours a week, imagine what that would look like if you spent 10 hours a week, or imagine what that would look like if you spent 40 hours a week. Imagine if you spent all 60 or 70 hours of your working week on this, right? And I don't know. And I talk to my GM about this all the time, and he says every single time, he says, you should totally do it. You should totally do it, because he also admits that he's never seen a business grow this fast, and he's been in the service space for a lot longer than I have, in the construction, remodeling, home services space for the majority of his career. And he says to me all the time, like, he's never seen a business like this grow this fast. But the thing that he's, I think, the most impressed with is how much visibility and infrastructure and systems we put into the business. So within 6 months, he's like, I feel like I understand what my business does more than any other business I've ever had. And he's run like $70 million businesses, remodeling kitchens and stuff like that. And he's like, I have more visibility into the inner mechanics of this business than any other business. And that's a really interesting comment, right? Because that's what I do, right? It's like, I like to build out those unit economics, those systems, those processes, those ways that we collect data, and we build out models and really like figure out the visibility of the business, right? And the health of the business. So when things start to go wrong, you know what to do to fix it, or how much you can afford to fix it, or you can start seeing the signs of it before problems happen, et cetera, right? Not to say that it's been easy. It's been an insanely hard process to get the business to this point, just like any growth startup, right? Like you are building the rocket ship as it's already taking off into orbit. It's the same process here. Like we've been messing up like every single week and just like learning things as we go and building things as we go. But for the most part, we build things pretty well. And as we build them, we're building them in systems based mindset so that they can scale and they can operationalize for stuff later. Like, for example, a good example of this is like data collection, right? Like we immediately started using software tools to collect all sorts of random data about our routes. And 90% of the data is useless to us right now because we can't even keep up with the demand and we don't have enough customers in one geo to do the logistical like efficiency stuff, but or we can't like understand exactly like the time or the place to gather all the data to figure out like how much chemicals we're using and how much we're forecasting to use. But because we started with the data collection earlier on, even though it wasn't a necessary thing, and I'm sure people thought I was crazy for wanting to collect all that data in the beginning. Now, looking back at it, it's easier to fundraise for it because it's easier to project to an investor the unit economics of it, right? Because we know how long it takes to clean a pool. We know how much chemical is being used. We also know what we project, how many chemicals will be used, and how much that'll cost, projected in multiplications or at a factor of 3 or 4 or 5. And then we're also starting to know how much we can save by buying things in bulk. We also know attrition rates of employees, what the recruiting curve looks like. But my point being is we've collected so much data from the beginning that we're now able to be very strategic about how we build things moving forward. And we're going to continue to do that and be in that mindset. But all of this to say that the conundrum comes back to this 2 hours a week to 4 hours. I say 2 to 4. When there's a problem, I spend about 4 hours a week. And then when there's no problem, I spend about 2 hours a week. Or, finding a consulting client that'll probably be 20 to 40 hours a week. And then funding this and going back and forth, when this business has the potential to make, a lot of money this year and potentially even more money and enough money for me to do this full time next year. And so then it comes down to time exchange and then what it is that I want to be doing. And so over the last week, I've been really thinking a lot about this and how I've been spending so much time at work trying to like solve this, income deficit. And I'm spending a lot less time with my kids. And it's really, really hard. It's very, very frustrating because I have all of these assets. I'm like so cash poor, but like asset rich. And part of me just wants to sell one of these homes and just like, be comfortable so I don't have to worry about, the loss of deal flow and I can get it over time and then, mitigate some of this time increase of having to sell and find new deals or build this business or fundraise for that. Like all of this stuff takes so much time that, I'm reacting to the market changes of being laid off. But I don't know. It's just really, really tricky because all of this stuff is exciting and it makes a lot of sense. But when you lump it all together, it's one aspect of my life, right? It's like that's all work. And for me, work isn't the biggest bucket in my life. And I don't want it to be. I want the biggest bucket to be my family, especially my girls. And I want it to be being a dad. And that's the whole reason for even going on this journey of like being a consultant, learning how to build assets, networking with like other people that generate multiple sources of income and learning that mindset and like going down. The whole point of all of that was so that I could actually have a more focused life, with being a dad at the forefront. And I mean, I'm in this mode. I mean, granted, I give myself some slack because no one, could have predicted that, every single tech startup, across the country and someone in the world was going to lay off 10 to 20% of their staff. And then, the capital allocators of the world were simultaneously in one week going to pull back on their investments for, an unforeseeable amount of future. But um, I think that that being said, regardless of what happens, I want to make sure that I'm also doing things that, you know, lead to things that I want to achieve and do. And the biggest thing for me is just trying to figure out what's going to help. Hey, girls, what's going to help me? What's going to help me spend more time with my girls? And And they are. I was going to bring it down so you guys could see them, but yeah, what can I do to not necessarily ping back to the other side, because I have a terrible.
Tomorrow's the weekend.
It is the weekend tomorrow. You excited?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you say hi?
Hi,
What's your name?
guys.
Yeah. What's tomorrow?
The weekend.
Woohoo!
Weekend.
Okay. Trying to figure out, how do you find that balance, right? Because I'm very prey to like swinging too extreme, and I mean I'm very extreme. I have a very extreme personality in the sense like when I go do something, I do it really really hard. And I think the thing that I got to learn at this point, in my professional parenting life is, oh, how do I like kind of like do a gradient, right? A gradient level back versus like a full pendulum swing back. And so I think that's the big test for me, moving forward, at least for the next few weeks and possibly months, is, like find ways to, you know, dial things and make it a little bit more fine tuned. And so instead of like, wiping everything out and going gung ho on something 150%, maybe it's like, okay, so you have a general direction strategy and it still makes sense. And I still think that I need more time to ideate the exact vision and execution of how I'm going to do this, but just tweak it a little bit so it's not so extreme. Because right now I'm not feeling so satiated as I go through these motions, because I want to be spending more time with my girls, and I want to be spending more time working out and with my wife. And I also want to see my family. I want to vacation with my family. We used to go on an annual vacation, and we haven't seen each other in a few years, and it'd be really great to see them. I'd love to see my parents, and be able to like, really change some of that just a little bit so that like it's not so extreme. And so I think that's kind of where I'm at. And that's kind of the girl talk today. I hope that made some sense. I feel like I'm using these as like therapy more than actually sharing some knowledge or documenting the journey. But I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that it made some sense to you, and it helps you along in your journey. And if you have any questions, thoughts, feedback, or um, advice, please let me know. Give it to me straight. Tell me what you're thinking. Comments. You can call me, text me, email me, or just put it in the comments below in the or whatever platform you're listening to. And let me know, because I'd love to hear from you and hear what you think and what you think I should do and how you would solve these problems, and if you think I'm on the right track. And then also, if you have any questions about what I should talk about on these talks, I'm kind of just free writing it. Like I just don't know exactly what I'm going to say when I get on these things, and my schedule's super tight, so I just kind of hit record and start talking. So I know it's a little bit unstructured, but if there is something that you want to know more about, I'd love to hear it. So feel free to email me a question or comment a question below. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And until next time, I will talk to you soon. Hopefully, I'll have some really big news by the time I do this again in 2 weeks. All right. Bye, y'all. Thank you again for listening to another episode of The Girl Dad Show. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please take a moment to give us a review on your podcast service. These reviews help us grow a lot more than you know.